All right, good afternoon, everybody. Let me pull up the agenda and we'll go ahead and get started. Here is the agenda as always. Hopefully it's showing. So yes, as always, this is an optional meeting. Please don't feel obligated to have to be here. We're going to go through a couple different things. Some of the things we have are based on a request. We have Emily Robinson, who's our state director for the work regarding hearing impaired and deaf ed. She'll be talking about the language acquisition HB 48. Jacob's got some updates for review and support monitoring. And then Justin and I will talk about any overall updates we have. We continue to have these meetings weekly. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A or chat, and we will respond to them as we can. If there are very specific questions or questions we cannot immediately answer, we'll run them through disaster info so that we can kind of update and get that information done later. So with that, I will turn it over to start to Emily. So.
Okay, let me adjust my screen.
It's showing.
You can see the screen all right?
Yes, sir. And yes, ma'am.
I want to go ahead and start discussing about the timelines related to the language acquisition that came from HB 548. Many of you have already asked that when will the data collection begin? And it's been open as of last Monday, September the 14th. The system is already live, so you can go ahead and start collecting your data. The system will use TDNA. Wait, let me make sure I'm clear.
TSDS.
TSDS, yes, thank you. TSDS, and that's where all the information will be housed. It'll be set in TSDS. Also, I wanted to discuss that this data collection will be collected for the whole year, and we'll be closing the last week of May and approximately. Also, I wanted to explain that the annual process, let me pull that up. Every year we have to collect data from family and parents with the parents' permission to do the assessment. We already know that some of the school districts will be providing assessments related with the R every year. However, we have to make sure that if you plan to use the same system for the data, for the assessment and data collection for the R, the annual process, that's fine. We have to make sure that the parents understand that we want to collect data for this system that we have set, and also give us permission to do that as well. We already have the list that's already been approved, the list of assessments that have already been approved. The LEA went ahead and they can choose any of those from the list, or then they can also choose more than just one assessment. And then we will be collecting that data. And we have to set up with the LEA and assigned somebody for collecting and entering all that data. We've already trained our ESC for PEIMS. Champions. We've already trained them, so they're already aware of how to enter the information into the system already. And then every year we have to fill out a report based on the collection and what we've seen, and if we're seeing some improvements that are being made or what kind of recommendations. we need to recommend, and we'll be doing that every year annually. I also know that we had some questions related with some kids that are labeled 504. And we have been looking and found out that we can only collect data on kids that are labeled or coded as O2 deafblind or O6 deaf and hard of hearing. If 504 kids aren't using those codes, then we can't collect data on them. Also, if a student either CO code O2 or O6 and they receive special language acquisition services, then the LEA can put down no services are provided, and then you won't have to collect that data from that point forward. If they're receiving specific language acquisition services, yes, go ahead and you can put that down, and then you can do the assessment. So are there any questions so far from what I've explained?
Yes, there is. So there are a couple questions. So the first question is there a specific consent document that TEA is working on, or is this something that they should incorporate into their own IEP process?
The parent's consent doesn't have, it can be requested at the same time. You can do this annually at the beginning of the year to get the consent. And then we can have the LEA get a form, but we don't have a form included that they're using.
Okay. And then the other question, there's a couple questions. Would you just repeat and clarify about the different codes? O3 is auditory impairment and O6 is intellectual disability.
O2 is deaf-blind. O6 is auditory impaired AI.
Okay.
It's the same thing as deaf and hard of hearing.
If a student does not receive support from a...
Go ahead.
Okay. If a student does not receive support from a teacher of the deaf or hard of hearing, are we collecting data for those students?
That doesn't have to be specifically related with the deaf and hard of hearing teachers. Speech language pathologists, they also provide specific language acquisition services as well. So it could be either one or both. But if you're not receiving any, but they have that code O2 or O6, then you can put down no services that are being provided, and then you're done.
Okay. The other question that I see right now is, can you provide clarity on the statement about if a child is not receiving language acquisition services from the LEA?
Well, for example, a deaf and hard of hearing student that has the O6 code could be mainstreamed and only receiving interpreting services in special education or general education classes. Pulling in an interpreter, it doesn't mean that they're receiving specific language services, they're just receiving interpretation. So they don't have to be documented as, you don't have to collect that data. And then the age range is 0 to 8 is the age range that we're collecting data on.
How are we defining language acquisition services?
Well, there could be many different ways that that's explained. More specifically, having a self-contained classroom, self-contained classes with the deaf education teacher teaching language, reading, writing, That would be specific language acquisition services, or a speech pathologist, speech therapy. Sorry, hold on one second. It's raining really bad here, so anyway, I had to close my door, sorry. So speech pathologists can provide speech language services for the students. And that would be one direct services that they could receive. And some teachers would be working with direct services, observing them receiving language services, or doing consulting on goals or setting up goals for language acquisition. So it could be in the IEP as well.
Okay. So would reading instruction in a self-contained setting with a deaf ed teacher, would that qualify as an example?
Yes, that would be one example, correct.
Okay. The codes, so there's a lot of confusion about the codes, the 06, 02. What codes are those? Are those the PEIMS codes, or are those, because we're getting feedback that the codes that she's defining are not the same as the codes that the folks understand?
Yes, we realize that the codes aren't the same. We tend to normally use, from the ones we tend to normally use, but the PEIMS code 0206, that's what it is in the PEIMS code.
Okay. How does this change for on-site versus our itinerant services?
Itinerant services, if you're providing language services to the student, that would be considered another example. If there's specific language acquisition services, it wouldn't be any different with the itinerant.
Okay. And then if a student is receiving services in an RDS PD that's not in the local LEA, who is responsible for fulfilling these requirements?
That would depend on the shared service agreement, the SSA, with the home district and the RDSPD or SD. Some SSAs say that the RPSD, they have been using the PEIMS annually for those reports, so they'll continue to report for this data collection as well that way. So you'd have to look back at the SSA and have that discussion with your fiscal agent to make sure that they're both understanding who needs to be doing the reporting.
Okay. So why don't we pause there and she can keep going and we'll come back to questions.
Okay.
So was she done presenting? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if she had more material. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
I have no other questions. If there's no other questions from you, yes, I'm done.
So there are a couple questions then. So is the slides that she shared something that will go out or is available somewhere?
Yes. And I'm sorry, I forgot about that. That is part of my webinar related with this bill. It's general information and it's supposed to be uploaded to our sensory impairment website. Let me show you an example. I can't find it right now, but it's under the state guidance. We already have 3 documents that are uploaded already that are already there the list of approved assessments. We have a spreadsheet that expands more information about the assessments themselves, like who can give the test, how much the cost is, how long it takes to provide that assessment and test. That kind of information is on the spreadsheet that we've already uploaded. And we also have one more related with the scoring and how you can determine what score they've received, if it's above average, average, or below average. And that rubric is there as well. And also, we're going to put it up on the webinar in the same place.
Can they get clarification on what needs to be contained within a consent?
Really, it's up to the LEA what they want to put down. They've already discussed about wanting to pull in some of the questions. Hold on one second. Some of the questions from the data collection, someone's putting down, like they have parents where they go ahead and fill that out, and then they can pull that information in and put it in the system. Some just want to have a little bit more of an explanation for the purpose of the data collection for monitoring and gathering data. And we want to provide, assessments and testing for your student. If you wanted to, they can choose if they want to go ahead and do that or not. It's just general information about that.
Okay. If a student is coded deafblind, receiving homeschool services, does that student need to be included?
As long as they're able to put it down in PEIMS as the annual collection. If it matches with what their school district is doing, yes, they can.
Okay. And then I have a student using a microphone system and has a secondary disability of auditory impairment. The AI person is on consult. Is that an example of required reporting?
That AI teacher is providing language acquisition services, are they? I mean, are they providing language acquisition services?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Is the AI teacher providing language acquisition services?
They didn't clarify. They said, yes, I think so.
Okay, if they are providing that, then yes, the student would qualify. If they're under the age of 8 years old.
Okay, that answers those questions. And then we'll put something out too. I know Justin put it in the chat. We'll put something out on the codes to help clarify the codes, because I know there's a lot of questions about the codes and confusion.
Yeah, and just to weigh in on a plug for Emily's, this is Justin, sorry, just to weigh in on a plug for Emily's webinar. We've had some issues getting everything made accessible, and that is what the holdup is. So as soon as that's done, we'll get it published and let this group know where it is. And along with that, we'll have some information, clarifying information about the codes for everyone. Is that accurate, Emily?
Yes.
And and one question was about the age. So this is all specific to students 0 to 8. Is that correct?
Yes. As of September 1st.
Okay. Okay. So I think that's it. Thank you. And Emily, and we'll send out some of the other materials that you talked about and some of the links, so people can have them. And now we'll move on to Jacob. Jacob was going to give some updates on the parent materials regarding review and support and the monitoring process.
Yes, thanks, Ed. Hey, everyone, great to be back with you. We just want to take a couple minutes and highlight some resources that have recently been added to the review and support webpage, specifically focused on parents, families, and caregivers to support understanding of ways that they may be involved or asked to be involved in the monitoring process if an LEA is engaging in monitoring in the current school year. I need to pull up my screen share. Sorry, I'm not seeing what I need. Try again. Here we go. Okay. So hopefully you're now all seeing the review and support page on the TEA site.
You're good.
Great. Okay. So if I scroll down a little bit from the top, this is just the main review and support page. Last time I was on this call, we highlighted some of the materials in the differentiated monitoring and support section, but you'll notice just below that, there's another section called support and customer service. We've added a button here on the left specifically for family resources and have published a short monitoring family fact sheet available in 4 languages to support families in understanding what happens in the monitoring process, at a high level, and the ways that they might be asked to be involved in the monitoring process. So you'll see here, let me just pull up that fact sheet. So we do have it published in English, in Spanish, in Vietnamese, and in Arabic. And this one pager just shows how LEAs are selected to engage in monitoring every 6 years through the cyclical process, and then highlights the ways that parents, families, and caregivers may participate in the process, either through a stakeholder survey, which is disseminated to all LEAs who engage in a cyclical review. And one element of that survey is focused specifically on gathering feedback from parents, families, and caregivers. That survey is also available in a variety of different languages. When LEAs who are engaging in cyclical monitoring are working with their assigned review and support point of contact and discussing the survey dissemination, and some of those conversations are happening now, but over the next couple of weeks, make sure to share any languages that you may need that parent survey provided in so that we can ensure you have what you need. Other ways that parents and families may be involved if an LEA is selected for on-site activities, and of course in the current 2020-2021 school year, those activities will be conducted virtually. However, parent, family, and caregiver interviews are a critical component of that process. Certainly, we don't have the opportunity to speak with all parents, families, and caregivers in the district, but a sample of parents and families are selected to engage in interviews. So we just kind of highlight here what happens in the survey process, what happens in the interview process with general supervision and monitoring. And then just some resources down below to the cyclical schedule, a review and support site, general parent and family resources available through special ed program, links to dispute resolution and to the SpedTech website as well. In the near future, we're also anticipating being able to publish a companion to this one pager, a short recorded video presentation about 4 minutes or so that goes into a little bit more depth in this, but is also specifically focused on parents, families, and caregivers and the ways that they can be involved in monitoring. And we'll keep everybody updated through the listserv and other avenues when that resource is available as well. And that is all I had to share for today, unless there are any questions.
So are we required to give out this fact sheet to parents in the districts that are in cyclical review?
Great question. It's a resource that's available. What we would recommend with the survey dissemination, as your assigned reviewer, we'll walk through with you. There will be one link for the stakeholder survey. The survey is a branching survey. Typically, LEAs disseminate that because they have the extensive contact list for their staff and for their families. It would be recommended perhaps to include a link to this site as well, just to give families the opportunity to read more information about what is being asked and how that information is being used when you disseminate that.
So the question remains, is it required?
It's not a requirement per se, but a supplementary resource that's available.
At least at this point, that was the only question we got for you, Jacob.
Okay, great. These resources are public facing, so they're available on the review and support website. So if a family member were to reach out or have a question about the survey after that link's disseminated, you can always direct them to these resources to gather a little bit more information. Thanks for your time, everyone. Appreciate it.
Okay, and now we're going to move over to Justin. Had a couple things for updates. There you go.
Afternoon, everybody. Super short. Just keep it at top of mind that we are still, I know no one is more ready to get our dyslexia platform launched than I am. I know we continue to get questions from the field about when that's going to happen. We will have information coming soon. Things are starting to move rapidly with the contracting process, which is a good thing. So that's been the holdup with sharing information with y'all. So just know it's still coming, and we'll give you plenty of information as soon as we can. The other thing is a little bit weird. TEA has been informed by OSEP at the Department of Education that we need to send some information to all LEA directors regarding the mediation process. And so that you're going to get an email from me to the same group and list that's here. You're going to get an email from me in the next 24 hours-ish that is going to have a letter that talks about mediation. And I'm not going to dig into it now, but I want you to live with it for a little bit and then get us questions for next week's webinar. We'll put an agenda item on the webinar next week, and then we'll try to answer any questions we can at that time. So just a heads up that it's coming so that you're not blindsided by it. It's not, don't panic. It's nothing groundbreaking or earth shattering. But just I don't want the first time you see it or hear about it to be when you get the email, because that sometimes freaks people out. There's not any more to worry about than what's going to be in the email. So just be advised it's coming, and be ready to, if you have questions, we'll address them next week. That's all I had, Ed.
And I don't have any updates today, so
All right.
I guess the only update I would I'll take that back. I lied. So the non-public and high cost fund application is open. I know it was down for a little bit because of something with tech, but it is back up as of this week. So if you had any placements over the summer, please go in and get those done. So, but the application is now open. So the non-public application is open. The non-public application is open. The high cost fund application is not going to be open until the spring like normal. So.
I do have one more quick thing that I forgot that I could make this announcement already. We have identified our grantee for our significant disproportionality grant. And everyone has been notified, the folks who were not successful in their application and the entity that was successful. And just for everyone to know, it's going to be American Institutes for Research, AIR, is the awardee for that grant. So look for more information on that to come, but it's going to be a pretty major project with a lot of good stuff to help districts in all stages around significant disproportionality. So we're super excited about that work.
I got one question in the chat. Yes, if you have a continuing placement, you can continue that. So that's with the application being open now for continuing placements, you can go in and do anything for a continuing placement too. I don't think an official notice went out that it was open. The application was open, but I'll double check. If not, we can make sure that something goes out. So everybody knows. So to clarify, so the non-public residential and day application is now open. So if you had a placement over the summer or have to do have a continuing placement, you're now able to go in and use the application as normal. Usually we have it open on, the goal is for us to always have it open for the first to start September, but we had some technical issues with the servers, so those are corrected now. I just clarified when I said it the first time, I also said high cost fund. That was not accurate. The high cost fund will open in the spring just like normal. So I apologize for any confusion I caused momentarily. So there's no changes to that process at this moment. So just the non-public application is now open. And let's see, there's one question. So the application stays open for non-publics. I don't know the exact date, but I can get it. Usually we try to close it toward late spring. I know, and the reason why I don't want to guess incorrectly in the date, I know we pushed it this year because of COVID to give people more time, but it's usually around April or May that we close it. So, and that's so we can get everything processed as far as funding. But I'll have official dates next week, so you guys know that information. So, and that covers all the questions we have at the moment. So with that, I'll give you guys a half hour back, and we'll have a call just like normal next week. Please use disaster info as always if you have any specific questions or things we need to address, or if there's, or outreach us if there's specific topics, or through your ESCs if would be good for us to go through. So, and the Zoom link is not changed. The Zoom link remains the same. So, and thank you very much, everybody. Have a good afternoon.